Something that has been talked about a couple times on this show is the decision of whether or not to be child-free and how hard it is to really grapple with wanting to do it, but seeing the state of the world and all of those things. And so in this episode, I wanted to just share Jenn's unique story as someone who grew up knowing that she didn't want kids, and now she's in a relationship where she received a daughter from this relationship that she adopted and that she has been pleasantly surprised by the universe by. So that was the intention behind this episode, is hearing a unique story and a unique entry point into motherhood, besides from, like having your own biological kid. And we ended up meandering into talking about how we learn body image at home and the unique kind of complexities with raising a daughter, and realizing that she is learning from you as her mother how to have a relationship with herself and her own body. And yeah, we talked about body image, about fashion and fashion choices, and how beauty and what is considered beautiful and acceptable is such a socialized thing, and it's different across cultures. And I hope that you enjoy this episode with Jenn. If you have any thoughts at all about what we shared today and you are watching on YouTube, feel free to comment below. If you are listening or watching on Spotify, there's also an area for you to comment below. And then there is going to be links in the show notes to find Jenn, to also find our previous episode. And in our previous episode, we talked about the reality of breaking that cycle of toxic relationships. And Jenn so graciously and vulnerably shared her journey going through a couple of different relationships and what she learned in that. So if you have not listened to that, the link to that will be in the show notes below. And if you have not already, please subscribe to the YouTube. Please rate us with whatever platform you are listening or watching this on. We currently have a goal over here to have our first 200 5-star ratings on Apple. So the link to that will be in the show notes in case you are listening or watching somewhere else. If you have access to Apple, please give us that 5-star review. It would mean the world to me. Welcome to Openly Spoken, the podcast to help you show up, speak out, and be seen in healthy relationships. On this show, we talk about self-love, sexuality, relationship tips, including ending the cycle of toxic relationships, and healing and thriving after heartbreak. Hi, I'm your host, Celia, and I am a certified sex, love, and relationship coach, helping ambitious women with a history of toxic relationships feel deeply connected in healthy love. These are such important topics that every woman deserves, so if you could leave this show a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to help more women find this, it would mean the absolute world to me. Thank you so much for being here today. Now let's dive into the show. Welcome to Openly Spoken, the podcast to help you show up, speak out, and be seen in healthy relationships. We are joined today by Jenn Hartt once again. Second-time guest. Jenn is a creative strategist, world traveler, and storyteller with a passion for connecting people through authentic stories. As the founder of Jenn's Way, she helps entrepreneurs turn big ideas into reality. She's a little bit witchy and deeply reflective, and Jenn believes in the magic of the world around us and strives to create a safe space where everyone feels like they belong. Jenn gets to be married to the love of her life, and they got married in 2023, and she shares her world with her daughter, pets, and the people that she holds closest. Whether she's working on a creative strategy, exploring her Sagittarius sun and Aries moon energy, or diving into her reflector human design, Jenn brings passion, curiosity, and a touch of magic into everything that she does. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah. And
I appreciate it.
I'm very excited to talk about your kind of like unique journey with knowing that you wanted to be child free and then now being in a space where you are a mom and how that was like an unexpected journey. And where should we start with that?
Oh, there's a lot. Well, the big news is by the time this episode is live, I will have legally adopted my daughter. So that is happening March 11th, which is huge. It's
Yay.
been a journey in itself. We filed for adoption in August of 24. And
Wow,
it
that
should have been
takes a while.
it should have been a really straightforward, easy case, for lack of a better term, but it's, court system. They complicate things no matter what.
Mm,
But by the time this episode is live, as long as everything goes as it should, the adoption will be finalized, which is amazing. My journey with motherhood has been insane. Said I was never going to have kids. And I was the friend that my friends knew Jen's never going to have kids. Like, I was the auntie that would spoil the hell out of everybody else's children. I am lucky enough to have lots of non-biological nieces and nephews. But I never thought that motherhood was going to be in the cards for me. A big part of that was generational trauma in my
mm,
family.
mm-hmm,
And I didn't know that label, right? Like I didn't know
mm,
what that meant, but now I know that that's a big reason. It wasn't There's so many valid reasons for wanting or not wanting kids, and oftentimes that's the state of the world or finances or being able to be a dual income household and go off on adventures and not worry. Like, all of those are such valid reasons, but I realized mine was generational trauma
mm.
and trying to let go of things I've seen repeat through the generations of my family. And it was nothing to do with a child necessarily. It was, I didn't want to be a bad mom. I didn't want to continue those traumas into another generation. I feel like the universe was like, well, here you go. You've done the work. You're not going to do that. So I had a stepson years and years ago with my ex-fiance, which we talked about on the last episode of your podcast that I was on. So I was raising Brett for a few years, but now I have my daughter Elena, and it's been a wild ride. I came into her life when she was 4 years old, and she's now 6 and in first grade, and is my kid, which is great. We're a lot of like, my husband would say, almost to a fault sometimes. So
That's so
she's a
interesting.
fiery. We were at a nail salon, and this was when they first moved to Colorado. We were at my friend's nail salon, and Elena was with me. And this woman was like, "Oh my gosh, your daughter is like your little twin." And it was so like, and we do look alike, which is so funny. And I was like, "Oh, thank you so much." But we are not biologically related at all. But she looks like me and acts like me. She's a fiery little Leo, and I'm a Sagittarius. So that's got its own adventures.
I love it. Yeah. And 4 is such a magical age, and even 6 is such a magical age. I used to work with kids. I don't have kids. Yeah. That must have been hard too, to have raised a son before, like in your previous relationship. I don't think you mentioned that in the last episode, because then when you break up, it's not just like the partner that you're grieving, it's also that relationship. And
It was harder than losing the relationship. Losing
I
Brett
bet,
was
yeah,
10 times harder.
because
And
it's
I
not their
stayed in his,
fault that you're
no,
like not a part of their life anymore,
no.
but you have
And,
to have
and I know,
boundaries, you know?
yeah. And I tried to, and I will say I did not have healthy boundaries. And I tried to stay in his life for, I mean, it was a couple years until we had like a real falling out with his biological mom. So I haven't spoken to any of them in almost 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And I just know that I'm hopefully a happy part of Brett's story as he gets older, and I'm thankful for that chapter.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it is a hard part bringing you back to dating someone with kids and getting really, really attached, especially when you think it's going to be forever. And Brett lived with us full time part of the time, lived with us part time some of the other time. But, I set up his preschool and I set up daycare for him and I did all of these things. And I honestly said I was never going to do it again. Like, was
Mm.
not going to even go down that road. But really, came down to that RJ and I are in such a healthy relationship and the support there. And a lot of the struggles I had when I was in Brett's life were a lack of communication in my relationship that trickled down, whereas RJ and I truly are a team. So I'm greatly thankful. It makes, because parenting is not sunshine and roses every day by any means.
I bet.
But there's a quote that I love. I don't even remember. I think it was like an Instagram meme that I read, and it said, "Parenting is only hard for good parents." And or my
Because you
best friend and I,
care.
exactly. If you care about if you're a good parent or not, then you're a good parent. That doesn't mean you don't make mistakes. That doesn't mean you don't yell or you don't do something you wish you hadn't done. But simply caring of whether or not you're a good parent, you're a good parent.
So I'm curious, if you knew you wanted to be child-free, how did you end up dating someone with kids? Were there any like hesitations in the beginning of the relationship? Did you maybe not know that he had a daughter? Like, how did that happen?
And so I knew about Elena from the get-go. I knew her biological mom quite well. It's actually, our story is crazy because it'll come up on my Facebook memories. I sent them a onesie as a congratulations when they found out they were pregnant with Elena. So it is wild that I am now her mom. It's something I take very seriously. Yeah. Yeah. And I was at this point in my life, this was in 2023, that the universe was shouting at me to just lean in. And RJ came back into my life so unexpectedly, and I already was falling in love with him and I knew I was going to love her too. And the first time Elena and I met, we picked her up from the family friend's house. And RJ hadn't seen her all week, I don't think. She ran into my arms instead of his. And that was the first time we met.
Aww.
So, yeah. And I think I really just leaned into all the signs and all the messages and had faith and that this was the journey meant for me. And again, I take it very, very seriously. I know my position of being a mom actually comes from a tragedy. And sometimes that's really hard to think about, but I also know I was exactly where I needed to be. And we as a family, it was literally written in the stars. It's a crazy story. It's really wild, but it's funny because even when I wasn't sure I wanted to ever get married, or especially after breaking up with my ex, I thought about adoption. But I never I never knew it would be adoption like this. And I actually thought about adopting an older child, which when it comes to adoption, often we think about like teenagers, but it turned out to be a 6-year-old. But and my friends even were like, yeah, I can see you never having a biological child, but like adopting and providing a home and it's happened. It just happened in a way I didn't ever expect. And I consciously daily think about who I want to be as a mom, who I want her, not necessarily, I don't want to define who she is, but how I want her to feel as a human in this world. I'm in therapy to help me be a better mom and help me release the expectations I have around motherhood, but also help her through what she's been through. And it's been an amazing journey so far. It's insane and not easy, but 100% worth it. But I also totally understand women who have no desire to be moms. And I'm very passionate about uplifting those voices because you can choose what motherhood looks like for you. And you can also choose that motherhood is not for you. And that's okay too.
Yeah, there must also be some like difficult element, like when you're a stepmom or bonus mom, or I don't know if there are any other words for it.
Yeah.
Because
there's only two I've heard, but yeah.
Yeah. Because then there's an added element of like you're never going to replace the person that was mom from the beginning.
Yeah.
And if there's something like, a tragedy put you in that position, there's probably also a responsibility to like honor her memory or something so that she grows up knowing like where she came from. And that must be tough too, multi-layered and hard to navigate.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to it. Actually, Elena puts it perfectly. She says that she wasn't my baby, but now she's my daughter. And we never use the stepmom term or the bonus mom or any of that because I just am her mom.
Yeah.
There's actually a friend of hers who was like, oh, so she's your stepmom. And I'm like, no, she's not my stepmom. Like, that's not that there's anything wrong with those terms.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes listening to what the kids say and the language that they use, and there's such wisdom in children. And she has really guided our relationship. I mean, she called me mom like the first weekend that we met, and RJ and I weren't even engaged yet. And I remember him looking at me like, oh, it's going to scare her. But I don't know how to explain it other than I knew in my soul that this was the right path for me. And we've moved into a house since the last time you and I chatted, and we have a big backyard. And I don't think I've ever felt at peace with my personal life as much as I do now. And that doesn't mean it's not chaos, because it is chaos, but the physical location and our family dynamic. And I've never felt such peace in my personal life as I do now. And it was really just leaning into what the universe showed me.
I celebrate that for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
You and your cat palace, because I know you have 5 cats.
I know. I was like, there's actually, well, Phoebe's behind me, but none of them. So Hagrid, the house, so quick anecdote, the house has heat vents on the floor, which Hagrid's never been in a house with. So literally he's curled up in the shoe rack right now because the shoe rack is over the heat vent. Like, he is obsessed with these heat vents. He's living his best life. Cat palace. I like it. We're going to call it the cat palace.
Yeah. So you just mentioned that like kids are wise, which I so resonate with. I'm curious then, what are some of the things that you've learned from your relationship with your daughter that you were maybe surprised by, and maybe even think that these are things that might have not been revealed to you if you never would have had this mother role?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is my inner child work that still needs to be done, that has come out from being a mom. And I think I've done a lot of work. I'm really self-aware, nowhere near perfect. It just makes me more aware when I make mistakes of where they come from. But I have learned some of my inner child wounds that are not healed through what I would instinctually sometimes want to do in parenting, for like saying no for no reason. And I try really hard not to do it. And I've learned that that's something that I experienced, was being told for it with no for no explanation, no, right? And it's made me twofold. It's made me much more self-aware as a parent. I'll take that pause and take that moment before I respond, or I try to, work in progress. But also it has shown me that I still have some inner work to do myself. I also have a history of eating disorders and body dysmorphia. And man, I tell you, raising a daughter, I actually had this moment. This conversation is perfect timing. I had this moment the other day that I was like, I actually don't hate my body at all. Like, I am perfectly fine with, I'm healthy, I'm active, and that's all that matters. And that is a first in my life. Like, I can tell you, my grandmother called me fat at 3 years old. She took me out of the bathtub and called me fat. And core memory. But raising a daughter I was trying on a dress one day that I did not like. It did not fit. It just was not the right shape. And Elena walked in and was like, oh, Mama, you look beautiful. And right?
Yeah.
It's such a simple taking a step back and releasing some of the trauma that the world has created for us, and the simplicity of a child's opinion. And so I feel like as I am trying to help her heal, she is absolutely helping me heal at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, that childhood perspective on bodies and self-love, like they're not yet conditioned by society around us. They're still such a blank slate and innocent. And I love that you mentioned this core memory from age 3, because anyone that has body dysmorphia, I will be so bold and say 100% of the people that have body dysmorphia or eating disorders, that shit starts at home, by things that are said to you about your body when you're young, and just like a sponge absorbing everything from the outside world. And and that can go into generational trauma too, because when our moms don't feel great about their bodies, like they're more likely to make comments about, and it just trickles down from, the mother line. And that definitely runs in my family as well too. I remember once I was in my late 20s and had already been practicing yoga for a while. Yoga really helped me change my relationship with my body, because it went from being this thing I needed to mold into clay to this vessel that I get to live in, and it's temporary, and it's my baby, and it's my responsibility to take care of this thing. And then visiting my mom and realizing all these things that are said or habits that are done
Mhm.
that I used to do that are really like, oh, that's why I had disordered eating. Yeah,
Yeah.
we learn it from our environment.
And it's so funny as you're saying that we see a lot of blame in like early 2000s models. That comes up a lot. And yes, it definitely perpetuated what we were already being told at home. And mine started with my grandmother, and I loved my grandmother fiercely, but also she was the first one to comment on someone's physical appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And I take pause in how it's interesting to try to figure out the language to talk about our bodies. Cause like I have big thighs. I've always been a dancer or done yoga, and they're not fat thighs, they're big thighs. So talking about that kind of language, and especially when you like bring a daughter into the picture, and some of this I'm sure applies to having sons as well, but I can only speak from the female perspective, especially, but I take pause when not only when I speak about my body and not even necessarily in front of her, but it's made me take pause into what I think about my body too, because what
Mm-hmm.
we think becomes our actions. Even that slight pause can make such a shift. And if I can do anything to stop yeah, it's much more than just generational. It's almost like this pandemic of people, of women, year out, generation after generation, just having this almost hatred for our bodies that are,
Yeah.
it's, as you said, it's our soul gets to reside in this physical, beautiful thing, and we've been conditioned to judge it. When we got engaged, when I changed my Facebook status to engaged in May of 23, I immediately was inundated. And I will, from a social media perspective, I was impressed by their ad targeting, right? But as a human being, it was endless weight loss, get skinny for the day, look your best on your, like,
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah,
immediate.
people lose weight to fit into their wedding dress. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
And the first time I was engaged, I wanted to lose weight. I wanted blah, blah, blah. This time I was like, no, like I want to look at my wedding pictures in 10 years and still feel like me and not, oh
Yeah,
man, I was so much skinnier that day. Like, no, thank you. No.
yeah, no.
But I was shocked by the immediate market targeting done by Facebook and Instagram ads as soon as it was within minutes of me changing it to engaged.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we can let go of that conditioning and that type of thinking, oh my God, it's like an exhale, or like I was gonna say like a burp. Like it's like a relief
Yeah.
because you get to just exist without like worrying about sucking in your stomach or like getting the right angle for a photo. Like there's so much of life that we miss out on when we're so fixated on that stuff. And
Yes.
when we can just exist in our bodies and realize that, you know, the size numbers on clothes has nothing to do with our worth, has
Yes.
nothing to do with our beauty. And I mean, first of all, too, sizes are different across brands. That's like a huge thing. And it's interesting to look into the psychology of that because, like, in
Yeah.
places like in Asia, I think the phenotype there, like, people are a little bit like, I guess, smaller boned or something. And so a size that would be like a size 0 here is like a size 4 there. Because to them, it's like, I'm like, I have some curves
Interesting.
or something like that.
Yeah.
But like
That's
over
fascinating.
here, they'll take like a size 6 and label it as a size 2 because the psychology behind it is like, oh, the size 2 fits me. I'm going to buy it then. Like it adds that,
Mhm.
it tricks us into being like, ooh, yeah, I'm hot. Like because we're getting
Yeah.
that external validation.
That's what
I
I
used to
just had
work in
on
the
my
fashion
face.
industry.
Yeah, I had in my Facebook memories, I had 3 pairs of size 12 American Eagle jeans. And so this is probably 10 years ago that I posted it. And they were significantly different sizes. Like,
Mm,
and I remember when I put on the new pair and it didn't fit, I started to spiral. And
yeah.
then I pulled out my other 2 pairs that were easily an inch bigger, but they were labeled as the same size. So this whole, I mean, I was a size 0 in high school. That's when I struggled with anorexia. And now I can't even imagine. And I am lucky, and I still struggle with it once in a while, but I am lucky to have made the progress because body dysmorphia and eating disorders, the obsession it creates in your mind is so heavy.
Yeah. 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 It's a lot. And also like our generation, we had the trend of the skinny jeans.
Yes.
And I remember like even before skinny jeans, like jeans were tight in the
Hmm.
90s and early 2000s. I even remember before skinny jeans were a thing, I would like sew the bottom half of my jeans to make them skinny. Because, you know, you're looking at like the 80s for inspiration at that time. For
Hmm.
like, that's at least where it was in the community I lived in. Like the 80s
Yeah.
were in. And then as I got older and there was a little bit more looser styles, I'm like, oh my God, yes, my legs don't have to feel like sausages anymore. Like really in these like sausage casings. And
Yeah.
it's
And the
it's
jeans were
very
so low too, like add on to like,
my God,
like
yes.
3 inches below your belly button if you're lucky. Yeah. No,
I used to
fashion
wear
was not
leggings
kind.
underneath the jeans in high school because they were so low that it was
Yeah.
like I would have to like shave so much to like wear the jeans
Yeah.
without anything showing that I didn't want showing.
Yes.
So I'm
Fashion
just
was,
like,
we were
mhm.
at Kohl's getting jeans for Elena, and I remember thinking growing up, like 90s fashion, early 2000s, I was like, this is never coming back. This was awful. And then I was walking around and they've got like the matching sweatsuits out for girls. And I'm like,
Yes.
I was like, really? I know it's because now millennials are leading these fashion companies, but really we should have left the
Mm,
90s. We're in the 90s because like the really wide jeans now that are coming back and fashion. Yeah. No.
what's interesting too about all these different silhouettes, like I think you can really take your power back with fashion if you realize which silhouettes really make you feel confident as you wear them.
Mm.
And then just stick with those, even if they go out of fashion. Like, who fucking cares if it's not in fashion?
Yes.
If you feel good in it, like, people are going to feel that you feel good in your own existence and that you
Yeah.
can take up space and just like relax
Yeah.
into who you are.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a leggings and tank top and sweater girl through and through. And I have a friend that's a personal stylist, so she styled me for a photo shoot. And I look at the photos and I love the photos. I'm like, I'm not the person who's every day going to be dressed to the nines. I work from home.
Yeah.
And it's really empowering when you give yourself permission to wear the clothes you feel good in,
Yeah.
regardless of what the world is saying.
Yeah.
And bringing that into parenthood, like showing her that, like, okay, if that's what you feel good in, that's all that matters. Like,
Yeah.
we have lots of conversations. I mean, my husband says that I'm raising a little liberal, which is so true. But we've lots of conversations about colors. Even we saw a boy wearing a pink dress, and Alana made a comment like, "Yeah, boys can wear pink, girls can wear blue. We can wear whatever colors." And getting back to like that blank slate of her mind and her perspective, it's so refreshing too. Like, she is totally fine with letting other humans be exactly who they want to be,
Yeah.
and I hope that she never loses that because I think it's what our world needs.
Yeah. I so agree. Yeah, because as someone that came from the fashion industry, it's very interesting to see how fashion and the idea of like what is acceptable for what genders, whether it's a dress or pink,
Yeah.
that those are all social behaviors. And if you look at cultures across the world, like it's vastly different what is accepted. And I saw maybe like last week, I saw on Facebook someone post a video of I don't remember his name, but he's one of the guys who was in Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. I don't know if that show is still running, but he wore a dress to the Golden Globes. And there were so many comments where people were like saying how that's disgusting and how he's not a man. I wrote in the comments, I had to say something. I'm like, it's very interesting reading these comments and seeing how literal fabric triggers people so much. It's fucking
Yeah.
fabric.
Right? Like, who cares? I remember when I graduated high school in 2007, and I remember when it was a big deal when the guys started wearing pink polos they were like Hollister
Yes, I
polos,
remember
and that was
that.
such a big deal. And it's a color. Who has decided that pink makes you feminine and
Real
blue
men
makes
wear
you
pink was like the
yes,
saying. Yes.
yes. And
Yeah.
I can't imagine my husband wearing pink because it's just not who he is, but who cares? Like,
Yeah.
I was never the girly girl. I was never, I mean, orange was my favorite color in high school. My room was all orange. I was never the pink and purple. I liked frilly dresses when I was really little, but let the humans wear them what they want to wear. Let people feel good in what they decide to walk out the door in. And it's none of like, I'm reading Let Them by Mel Robbins right now. I don't know if you've read it, but it came
No,
out late last. I'm listening to it
write
on
it down.
Audible, and she self-narrates, and I always love when like self-help nonfiction books are self-narrated. But it's basically this idea of just let people be who they're going to be, let them do what they're going to do. And she takes it to a second part of like, let me. So it's let them and let me. And that's what I keep coming back to is just let people be who they want to be and follow the guidance of children who aren't conditioned against not letting people do what they
Yeah.
want to do.
That's also such good advice specifically for this podcast because it's ambitious women with a history of toxic relationships. If you're letting people be who they are and letting yourself be who you are, that's the foundation of building healthy relationships.
Yes,
People are going to feel
I think
seen. You're going to feel seen.
yeah, I think you'll really like that book. It's well, but she talks about
I
like
wrote
her
it
son in
down.
high school who prom night, they didn't have a reservation for dinner, and it's like a group of 20 kids, and like they're all like, oh, where should we go for dinner? And how the parents all started panicking that they're not going to be able to get dinner, and it's pouring rain outside. And, I think it was her daughter finally was like, let them do what they're going to do. Let them walk out into the rain if they want to walk into the rain. Let them go to the taco shop and try to cram 20 of them in if that, like, let them. And her son had an amazing prom night because he walked in the rain and went to the taco shop or whatever. But I'm curious, the book gets into parenting and let them,
Mm,
and how, you know, we can't let them do everything because,
because you got to
yeah,
protect them. Yeah.
yes. And sometimes protect the world from the decisions they might make too.
Yeah.
But I'm really curious to get into the let them theory for parenting too,
Mm,
and kind of letting go of expectations of who you want your children to be and then learning to parent around who they want to be.
mm. So, how do you, as someone who didn't want kids and now you have a daughter, how do you make that space to find out like who she is and create the environment to like help that
Uh,
like really flourish?
it's honestly something we are working on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a great example is she's in certain extracurricular activities right now. And there are ones that I want her to continue to do because it's something that I loved, and letting go of that expectation and listening. Like, is this something she actually wants to do, or is it something I want her to do?
Yeah.
And so that's a big one for me right now is trying to really and you know, she's 6, so it's every other day. Yes, I want to do that. No, I don't want to do that anymore. So at some point we have to make a decision, but I think it's listening. It's actually and trying to get beyond the emotions and what is she actually telling us? What is she communicating? And for me, you know, I'm huge into energy work. So her birth chart is something I lean into, and her human design. She is a Leo sun, and she even knows that she's a Leo sun. She was sitting having a meltdown about dinner one night and watching herself in our glass door cry. She's watching herself cry. So I looked at her, I was like, Elena, can you please stop watching yourself cry? But mom, I'm a Leo. It, Mhm.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but she is a Leo, like through and through. Like she is the center of attention, dancing around, singing at the top of her lungs. And that is not me. I have a lot of Capricorn in my chart. I'm much more reserved. My husband is also, he's a Virgo. So we're a little bit more grounded a lot of times. So letting her lead us in who she is, letting her dance around. And, you know, I try to step outside of my comfort zone and have dance parties in the kitchen. And because I know those are things that bring her joy. But I think just listening to what they're actually trying to communicate. And that's not always clear. I'm hoping it gets easier as she gets older. But who does she want to be? What does she want to do? And realizing that's going to change a lot,
Mm-hmm.
especially in these foundational years. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll see my little Leo heart over here. It's interesting because my north node, I think it is, I might have that backwards, but either my north or south node, which is supposed to be the lessons you learned in a past life, is Leo. So they say a lot of times biological parents will have that node in the sun sign of their children. So it's basically like their kids are presenting to them what they have learned in a past life. So the fact that she's not biologically mine, but our charts are intertwined like that is also really fascinating to me. So she allows me to bring out that more fiery center of attention that makes me a little uncomfortable, but I get to do it with her.
I think it's called South Node if it's the past, and then
I think
North
you're
Node
right. I
is
think
what you're
it's
heading towards.
that would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know too much about my chart, but I only know this because my South Node is Leo and my North Node
Funny.
is Aquarius.
Mine might be the same.
Yeah,
I can't remember what
think
my North
if
Node is.
I
Yeah,
think
right? Because they
it
could
does.
only,
Yeah, it can only be like
yeah,
one
because
possibility
they're
or something.
opposites,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
All this talk about astrology though has me wanting to say something that I hope isn't like I'm like, oh, it feels edgy to say. So I used to be way more into astrology. And as I've gotten older, I've been kind of like, not that it's completely bullshit, but like moving towards the direction of like, let's not take astrology and human design as like literal fact.
Mm.
And let's look at it and then discern and be like, how do I feel about this? Because I think something I've seen a lot, to be honest, even with my one on one clients, is like asking them questions of like, what is it that you want? Why do you want that? What will you get? It breaks my heart when the answer is like, well, my human design says that. And then it's like, okay, but what about you?
Wouldn't you?
What about you?
Yeah, I just had a conversation kind of similar, like using astrology as a guide maybe for self-exploration. But a great example, and I can't remember the sign right now, but Elena's Mercury sign, which is the way we communicate. My husband and I were reading, I can't remember what sign, but it doesn't fit her at all. Like zero. And I almost think she's a Leo in Mercury. I don't remember. But we both were like, oh, that doesn't fit at all. And like, that's okay. Instead of trying to shove her into fitting there,
Mm-hmm.
like, how does she actually communicate? For me, my human design helps me feel seen because I'm a reflector, which is very rare. But I would struggle with feeling overwhelmed in spaces with a lot of different energies.
Mm.
And when I learned about being a reflector, it aligned and it helped me feel seen. But like I'm a Sagittarius sun. And besides the fact that I love to travel, I don't feel like a Sagittarius sun. And that's okay too. Um,
What's your moon sign? Because that isn't that one supposed to be like what you really are?
I'm an Aries moon
Okay.
and Aquarius rising. So I think it's an interesting guide, but it doesn't define who you are. It can help you understand who you are if it fits, but exactly what you're saying. And it's also not an excuse for who you are. That's something that I read about
Yes,
too.
like those memes that's like, sorry I'm being a bitch, but the moon's in Virgo right now.
Or my daughter's sitting there crying, watching herself cry, but I'm a Leo. Okay,
uh,
well, we're still not going to sit and watch ourselves cry instead of eating dinner. Like, yes, you are a Leo, but we still have to function as a human too. Yes. So I think it's all tools, but
yeah,
none of it is like an end all be all either.
yeah, yeah. I think these tools are meant to like point us to our intuition, to be honest. Like that's what I think these all are. And
Yeah.
because it's like, but maybe that now I'm like, but maybe it's because of my human design.
What is your human design?
When I first found human design, I also was like, oh, I'm very seen. I feel very seen. But then I'm like, this is a huge rabbit hole. I don't have time to like really dig into it, but I'm a generator and I know that my strategy is to respond. So
Hmm.
maybe like what I just said is like when you read it, what is your intuition? Because I resonate with that I need that input to respond to something. Like I could be watching a video about a specific topic and then I get some inspiration about something completely different just because of one word they said.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I love human design. So anybody listening who hasn't explored human design, but it is a rabbit hole, as you just said, because there's a lot to it. Like I'm a 6-2 reflector. And I said that to a friend the other day, and she's like, oh, I don't know anything about 6-2s. And I was like, yeah, I don't really either.
Yeah, there's
But
all
it's
these
a
like
whole nother world.
gates and open
Yes.
centers and closed centers. And I'm just like, okay, no. Like, I'll let the experts do this, but I'd rather go
Hmm.
down a rabbit hole of like learning about sociology and psychology and sexuality. Like, that's my thing. And I think that's the beauty of being human is like you get to find what is that thing that you really love to absorb knowledge from
Yeah.
and like really immerse yourself in. Yeah. I feel like this conversation has really derailed from becoming a stepmom.
But it's all been amazing. Yeah. I mean, I can tie it all back to Elena, but yeah. Yeah. From fashion to astrology and human design. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. It's fine. Everything's fine.
But I mean, I think all of like knowing hers has helped me start to explore who she is. Back to kind
Hmm.
of what you're saying, it doesn't define her. Um, though being a Leo sun is the most spot on. She's August 15th, and I'm like, she's the most Leo I know. And I know a lot of Leos, but it doesn't define who she is. It's just a tool in helping us understand how to help her be the best person she can. And she gets to decide what that means.
Yeah. What are some things that you wish that you knew before going into becoming a mom unexpectedly?
I have been shocked. We touched on this, but how much it has opened up to some inner child work that I need to do, and how
Yeah.
much, even if I'm parenting different, especially different from how my grandmother parented, it still has opened up some spaces that I still need to do some healing. I honestly thought that I had kind of dealt with most of the shit from my childhood, which the universe is probably laughing at me for thinking that because that's a lifelong journey. That's been a big surprise at how reflective it is, and like
Mm.
having a daughter, especially how reflective that is of my childhood. I think something disheartening, unfortunately, is the judgment between moms. And
Yeah.
that has been really heavy and hard to swallow. For instance, I am self-employed. I work from home. I was part-time in an office up until July, but I am 100% at home. And so I will get comments on how much easier it is for me when Elena has days off from school because I work for myself. I can just not work that day. Well, no, my clients still have expectations of me. I still have expectations of myself and my business. I have gotten smarter that like spring break week, that's a great example. I have it blocked off my calendar for meetings. Nobody can schedule a meeting with me. Then I can take meetings that I need to, but
Hmm.
I know I have the space to spend with her. And yes, I am lucky that I can make that choice.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But every version of parenthood is hard, no matter what. A great one. My husband is blue collar. So last year he was working up in Vale and it was supposed to be a 1 week project. Now, 1 week single parenting is hard no matter what, even though I have Elena primarily during the week. Still, he's my person. So I get that
Hmm.
decompression just from having time around him. So 1 week was hard to begin with, but survivable. And then it unexpectedly turned into almost a month that he was gone. And I got a lot of comments of, well, he's blue collar, so you should expect it. And at least you're self employed, so you're home with Elena anyway. Yes, he is blue collar, so I know that that can happen. And yes, I am self employed. And it was really hard. It was really hard to be away from him that long, whether expected or not. It was hard to guide her through him being gone for that long and us not knowing when he was going to be home again. The judgment of moms to moms. And
Yeah.
it takes a village, but it takes an empathetic village that like it can't just be, it's not just a group of women because you have to stay at home mom. And I mean, I could not be a stay at home mom. Like major props to my friends who are stay at home moms. I think they're incredible. To the full 9 to 5 that's trying to balance that with motherhood. I
Hmm.
don't know what I would do if I worked a traditional 9 to 5. And, since November 1st, I has not had a single full week of school, either due to a holiday, a planned day off like today, or snow days or delayed starts. She has not had a single week since October that's been a regular schedule. And I don't know how someone who has a 9 to 5 deals with that
I know,
at
right?
all.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
hard no matter what. And you have to find your empathetic village of other moms. And I wish that I felt like it was getting better, like that a new generation of moms, that we were being kinder to each other. But honestly, there's so much judgment in
Yeah.
motherhood. And I knew that before, but man, do I feel it now. You just got to find your people. Just like with entrepreneurship, which is what I talk about all the time, you have to find your people that you can lean on that aren't going to judge you when you're not, I'm not a gentle parent. That's not me. And luckily, I have friends that also are like, yeah, I'm not a gentle parent because our children are spitfires. And if we try to calmly talk to them, they're just going to ignore us. But finding the people that align or finding the people that don't align, but understand that your journey is different and that that's okay.
Mm. Yeah. I would guess that that's getting worse because it's like life is just, harder now. And also, life is harder. And I think women have a lot more freedoms than we used to. Like, it's easier than ever to just start an online business. So then, if you are a mom who, like, okay, what I'm trying to say is motherhood is hard. But when you look at other moms and you see all these things that she has that you wish you had, then it
Mhm.
makes you want to dismiss that it could also be hard for her. Like, it's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
like I wonder if you run into like this kind of competition of who's having the worst time.
I mean, really, yeah. Yeah. It becomes like a who's suffering the most instead of like a parenting is just hard.
Yeah.
It just is hard. And and yes, if you put it on a scale, you could say that somebody has it quote unquote easier one day than someone else. I the comparison game, like it just I don't understand it. Like all we're all trying to do is raise good humans.
Yeah.
And that's no easy feat at all.
Yeah. And then also, shit, there was a question I was going to ask and it like floated out of my mind. Hold on, wait, is it going to come back? I don't know. I think it's because I looked at the time and I'm like, oh shit, we're almost at an hour. So then it like floated out. Hold on, wait. It was important. Yes. Okay. Here it is. So speaking of like spring breaks and time off, what do you do as a mother to create that like space for yourself? Because as someone who's not a mom but has a lot of mom friends, one example is like summertime. Summertime, like there are a lot of my mom friends who like I won't hear from them all summer because their kids are off of school all summer and it's a lot. So I'm curious, how do you make space for yourself after a school holiday once she's, in school and you like have the house to myself? How do you create boundaries around that?
It's so funny because at first, if she was home for a long weekend or whatever, the next day I would expect myself to just dive back into work. Just,
Mm,
and I very quickly learned that is not healthy for me and it doesn't work for me because I am exhausted. I don't
yeah.
care if it's just a long weekend or if it's spring after spring break. So she'll be home for 9 days for spring break with the weekends. And thankfully, my schedule I don't take client meetings on Mondays or Fridays. I do things like this, recording podcasts with other people. I do self-improvement courses or I just work. But especially Monday mornings, I have worked into my schedule to be a calmer space, no matter what. But I have learned that if it is a planned time off, that like the Monday after spring break, I will probably go for coffee with a friend or take the
Hmm.
dogs for a long walk and do a very slow day to work myself back up to work because as an introvert too, I need to recharge. Like I
Yeah.
need that space and time to recharge. And again, I'm lucky that I'm self-employed and I can take that space. But I think realizing that just because she's back in school doesn't mean that I'm back in work 100% and giving myself the grace of having a less productive, stereotypical less productive day is a good thing because the next day I'm going to actually be even more productive because I let myself reset. And maybe that's dropping her off at school and coming home and taking a nap or
Mm.
reading a book there was one day that I spent half of Monday reading a book and I was so productive the rest of the day because I just let myself do something that felt good for the first half.
Yeah.
But giving yourself those spaces. So even if you work a traditional job, that Monday morning, can you go grab a coffee with a friend and go into work a half hour late? What can you do to allow yourself that reset from going from, 24/7 mom to, okay, we're back into work and mom. Like, what does that look like for you?
Hmm. I love that. I celebrate that you do that. And thanks for sharing that. Hopefully, other people can do the same. So, the last time I had you on, I asked you a couple questions that I ask every guest at the end. So, since I've already asked you those, I'm just going to ask you one of them again
Okay.
in case your answer changes, because I think this
Yeah.
is an answer that depends on the day of how people respond. And I've had guests who have been on the show like more than once and they've like said a different answer to this. So the question is, what does self-love mean to you?
I think it's right now is a lot of what we were just talking about. It's taking space for the things that feel good. Something really hard for me has been learning that rest is productive.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be working late at night and my best friend will be like, Jen, you're not actually being productive at this point. You're too tired. Like, go to bed. Or
Yeah.
if it's not late enough, go watch a show. Gilmore Girls is my favorite show. So I will throw it on and watch.
Such a
But
comfort
I,
watch.
Yeah, right. And I don't need to pay attention to it because I've seen it, 20 times through. But I think self-love for me is taking rest when I need rest. And that's a work in progress for sure.
And for the people who are listening, where can they connect with you and tell us more about your work?
Yeah, so I am a creative strategist. So I help entrepreneurs take their big ideas and make them reality. That's through either strategy sessions, which are similar to coaching, or through task work like social media, newsletters, websites, system building. I love system building. So you can find me on Instagram. That's probably the easiest place, which is Life Jenn's Way, 2 N's on Jenn. I'm also on all the social medias under Jenn Weibor Hartt, 2 N's on Jenn, 2 T's on Hartt.
Beautiful.